thank you very much for joining us for this session where we are going to discuss how COVID-19 has affected the design of fitness, wellness and spa facilities. Today, we are discussing the business adaptation beyond COVID-19, the future offerings both from the luxury market and the mid-scale models, the incorporation of technology in facility design, and the outlook of investment into innovative design and brand distinction. That's what we're going to be discussing with our speakers today. Right now, we have 4 fantastic speakers to this event. We have Sean Tan, who is the director of True Group. And for those of you who do not know, that is one of Asia's largest fitness and wellness groups, which is established, I believe, Sean, in 2004. Just give me a little nod if that's okay. The True Group encompasses a number of brands, including True Fitness, state-of-the-art gyms both in Singapore and Taiwan. It also includes TFX, which is their merging of a boutique within a big box gym concept. And it also includes the wellness operations of True Fitness and also Yoga Edition, the premium brand. We also have joining us Barbara Chancey. Give us a little wave, Barbara, if you can hear me. Barbara, just give us a little wave to the audience. So Barbara is actually the founder of the Design Group. It's an international full-service boutique fitness firm. She's currently dropped out to change her audio. She's back with us in a second. Barbara's firm looks after 200 plus successful fitness studios, and it's her job to transform your vision as clients into the most thriving and pioneering brand for any scale, any location that you wish to deliver. We also have joining us Jamie Waring of Octave. Octave is obviously in Suzhou in China, but Jamie's joining us now from Australia. He's formerly of Six Senses, formerly of Homes Place, and formerly of Bocco Hospitality. So he has a number of different roles in his past and present, where he has been both in the operator and provider side. He now works with China's foremost well-being destination retreat called Sangha Retreat, and there they deliver a fusion of mindfulness with Eastern wisdom and Western science, delivering both world-class fitness operations with nutrition, psychotherapy, and life coaching, as well as traditional Chinese healing. And last but not least, we have Andrew Mahadevan, who is joining us as the Vice President of Life Fitness from Hong Kong. And they are a global leader in commercial fitness equipment, helping people lead active and healthy lives through their family of brands, which includes Hammer Strength, Cybex, Index, Cycling Group, and iFit. And they are distributed in over 125 countries, I believe. So thank you all for joining me today. And first of all, we're going to ask you as the panel for the first question, which is, how are you resketching or adapting your renovation plans in anticipation of the changing guest behaviours or expectations that COVID is bringing? I'm going to start this by asking Andrew for his input.
Sure. So I think what we're seeing from our customers is really 2 separate buckets. So we have existing customers that have clubs that have already been open for several years. And then you have new customers that we're anticipating to open clubs in the next 2 to 3 months. So if we look first at existing customers, we're really kind of in a, I guess you could say, a redesigned phase. And essentially what we're trying to do is help our customers move different pieces of cardio equipment, move different pieces of strength equipment, to help make sure that consumers, when they come to the space, feel that there's enough social distancing and feel that they're confident that the gym is clean and they have enough space. We actually recently, this was in the last week, we published publicly a reopening guide, and it's available to all, to where it actually has a set of guidelines, everything from training your staff to welcoming your members back after your gym is allowed to reopen from a government perspective. For new customers, we're starting to look at different business models. And what I mean is, we know that over the next 3 to 4 months, as Ronnie said in the keynote, everybody's kind of anticipating 3 to 4 months until things get back to normal. We know that membership bases are going to be a little bit lower. We know that it's going to be driven by consumer confidence in the gym. So how can we as an equipment supplier enter a new gym with lower CapEx, lower ongoing OpEx, help operators get to profitability faster, and then come in later stages and fill out the rest of the gym from an equipment perspective based on consumer confidence and government regulations. So that's really high level, the two different buckets that we're seeing this in.
Excellent. Thank you for that contribution. I'm now just going to go firstly, until Barbara comes back on, to Sean and then to Jamie for his input. Sean, go ahead.
Thanks, Blair. I like the way Andrew sort of distinguished it between existing gyms or clubs and new ones, because that's exactly how we look at it. Design is very much driven about how the management in the clubs see the future. And our future at the moment is a little bit murky because we don't have a full view of what COVID's going to do to the industry, the confidence levels, and how people are going to see returning to the gyms. We can take the lead from countries which have reopened, and we are heartened to see that a lot of them are reporting 70-80% membership which are returning. But as far as the Truth Group is concerned, for our existing gyms, are we going to do some major redesign? No. What's really going to happen is we're going to comply with whatever the government regulations are as to do with safe distancing and capacity controls. So if we have to space out the equipment a little bit more, if we have to block off alternate pieces of equipment, we will do that. But as for a full redesign, no. I mean, our cost structures are fixed somewhat. Our leases are locked with landlords, and until and unless we can, I guess, get out of those leases or perhaps renegotiate those leases, we won't be doing very much. The other thing that is sort of pushing that also is I think COVID-19 will bring about consolidation in the industry. You will see, unfortunately, some players dropping off, and the longer the stretches, the more will drop off. That may mean opportunities. So we may be able to pick up assets instead of building a new. We might be able to pick up assets, and that sort of falls within the existing gym category. But if we were to build new gyms, I think that's the interesting part. If I had a blank slate and I had to go in, how would I redesign a new gym? Assuming there's no vaccine found, there's no herd immunity, what would I do? I actually think that we might be building smaller gyms, less equipment. So like Andrew said, less CapEx will be spent so that we can space out everything a little bit more. What might be interesting is to build and to actually push ahead on that luxury and the premium market, because people will remember what has happened during the lockdowns. Now, if you ask someone, would you be comfortable working out in a crowded gym again? If you're not sure whether or not COVID will come back again in the winter months or who knows, right? Or some mutation or some other form. But if you tell someone, if I give you a space where I charge you a little bit more, but it's premium, it's luxury, and in today's day and age, what that means is better spaced out, better planned. So even things like your showers, your changing rooms, a lot more space, because those are one of the areas where even gyms which have reopened in part, they're shutting down, So that's all I will say at the moment, Blair, but happy to contribute more later.
Yes, no, that was great. I think you're spot on there, my friend. I know that some people have also tried to introduce the kind of kill box or isolated cube areas in their redistributed for one person, several materials there for them. I'm going to come now to Jamie, and then I'll come to Barbara last for the input on this question, which is the first bullet point. So Jamie, just to have you follow on from Sean and Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Sean, Andrew. Some good points. I mean, look, I think, first of all, this is not going to be here forever, right? We hope it's not going to be here forever, and we hope we see, things are moving now. Over the next few months, hopefully we'll get back to some kind of form of normality. But you know, the fundamental question or the fundamental point is around business models, right? Because the truth is, I kind of, you know, had a career in developing fitness brands, but also hospitality. And fitness brands is challenging because it's a model mostly. You know, it's a high volume model, and the productivity per square meter is really worked out in the basic feasibility of the business model. You know, and without this work, hence we will see some consolidation, no doubt. Now, if you're moving into hospitality, I mean, especially towards premium luxury, you generally have a bit more space. You know, you generally have a bit more ability to have flexible spaces. You know, whereas in the gym, you know, if you have a volume model, each square meter is each square meter is kind of worked out to make your numbers work. So I think it's one of fundamental looking at the business models, which mean, you know, your cash work. You know, this is the real challenge, and I think to go now into a redesign right now, I think it's difficult for operators. It's difficult when the truth is that cash flow is at an all-time low, and trying kind of put money into capex and redesigning is not possible. It's really survival mode right now, and I think it's the current operators need to find a way of scaling back from some of the variable costs to make sure they can survive. You know, I hear people not getting many breaks on lease contracts, and you know, so it's tough. From my point of view, yes, if you can develop space, I guess it future-proofs this thing kind of happening to some degree. But again, it's challenging. You're thinking, you know, the operators have to look back or look at the basic business models and play these different scenarios to try and kind of, you know, to make it solid and robust against these things happening. Because once we get over this, who's to say that another one similar situation doesn't arise in a year, 18 months? You know, so I think we need to look at more flexible business models. We need to look at the productivity of space, and again, the business model from the ROI perspective to make sure that, you know, we can see different scenarios and survive these kind of situations.
I think, gents, you've answered that question fantastically well between the three of you. Obviously, we lost Barbara for a second. She's hopefully going to come back and join us. I'll try and come back to her and put on this a bit later. But I do agree with all of you. The audience currently right now is very aware that this situation has posed a great problem to a lot of businesses. But as each of you had said, it's something we have to prepare for the future in case there's a resurgence or in case something else develops in 1 to 5 years' time that puts us in a similar position, and we have to try and adapt to all offerings. I'm going to now ask the next question and hope to come back for her input on the last part. So moving on, I'm going to ask each of the panel now, with the inevitable constraints around building new facilities based on the fact that most people are still recovering, will we see a narrowing of the overall offerings which are going to be offered by both the luxury players and the mid-market players? What's going to change, gents, and ultimately what will remain unchanged? So if I can go back first of all to Andrew and get his input on this.
Yeah, this is an interesting question, because I think Jamie hit the head of the nail where he said this isn't forever. You know, this is gonna have a 3 or 4 month tail, but then things are going to somewhat return back to normal. So if you really look at, let's break the 3 categories, because if you think about Life Fitness and what our business is, we're a commercial equipment supplier. So we study these segments very, very carefully. We know the sizes, we understand what the trends are, we understand what the growth rates are relatively closely from each of these segments. So if you look at HVLP, so budget, and if you look at mid-market, so if I think about the US, like an LA Fitness, and then you think about luxury, as Barbara said in the introduction, Equinox, and you think about those 3, I really struggle to see, at this point in time, being able to kind of predict whether the gaps will narrow or whether the gaps will widen. But what I actually think is kind of interesting is instead of looking at the segments themselves, because again, those are driven by customers, customer behavior. How are they going to feel coming out of this? Do they want to spend more on wellness? Is their personal economic situation to where they don't want to spend any money on anything other than the necessities? I don't think we know, but I think if we look at the main players, if you think about the HVLP segment, Planet Fitness, if you look at mid-market and think about Anytime Fitness, and then if you think and think about those 2, okay, so that's mid and budget, and then you go to PE groups, like Evolution Wellness, like FLG, which have a whole scale from entry level all the way up to you could say luxury. I think those are really going to be the groups that expand. And as I've heard consolidation several times already during the session, I mean, I think those are the ones that are going to be growing from a global scale. So I don't think it's really going to be segment driven. I think it's going to be more customer driven.
Okay, perfect. I'm just going to pause for now. I'm going to circle back to Barbara, if I may, for her response to the first question. So, Barbara, just in terms of your answer to how businesses are resketching or adapting their renovation plans in light of the current crisis, what do you think at that point? Barbara? I think we've lost Barbara again. I'm not quite sure. Okay, so for this part in time, I'll come back currently to Sean for his answer on the second question. So Sean, with the restraints that you mentioned on new building because of limitations, what do you see the offering is going to be like in the landscape between luxury and mid-level players? What's going to change and what will not change?
Again, I sort of agree with Andrew. I don't think it's altogether clear right now whether the gap between the luxury, the mid-market, and the budget is going to either widen or narrow. The opportunities are there for the operators to widen the gap. So those which have deeper pockets, if they're prepared to spend, my bet would be to spend on the luxury market and to push that even further. I think there is opportunity to do that. But I think more than a differentiation in the segment itself, I think what we will see operators have a big rethink about is that whole revenue model. I think what COVID has opened the eyes of many operators is whether or not the pay-as-you-go model is the way to go, or whether something along the lines of a recurring revenue. So we have a lot of budget gyms and boutiques which have been on the pay-as-you-go. And what we have seen is during this crisis, they are the ones which have been hardest hit, because if you can't open, or if you open with limitation as to size, that's going to hit your balance sheet really, really badly. But if you have a recurring model, at least you have a bit of an opportunity to maybe tell your members not to suspend for a period of time. We were in that boat, so we have a percentage of our members which did not suspend. That gave us a little bit of cash flow to sort of help us ride out this period. I think that's where we will see a change, and with that change, I think it'll still fall within the three market segments: your premium, your mid-market, and budget. I don't think we'll see immediate changes in that.
Okay, very, very good. Okay, so I'll come to Jamie next on that same second point.
So, yeah, look, I mean, you know, as you first of all have to reflect back, you know, the big crisis of 2008, 2009, you know, what happened?
Yes, I'm on,
well,
and you're in.
The economy fell apart. You know, what happened to the consumer? I mean, we tried to position things away from frivolous, right? Things which seemed non-essential, meaning that people, you know, during this crisis when people had less money, the wellness industry continued to grow, you know, based on the fact that people moved away from perceived things which are unessential, but actually made investments into their own personal wellness. Because in times of crisis, people do think of their health and wellness. So that was in 2008, 2009, which was just more a financial crash. Now with COVID, which is directly linked to health and immunity, we have a real opportunity. And I think that's to say, first of all. In regards to the segmentation, I mean, I think my personal opinion is that the market will become squeezed most. I think people will actually be polarized a little bit. I think people will move towards luxury if they're in that segment anyway. And people will also be looking for deals, because obviously so many people will be hit financially. Having said, you know, who knows what will happen. But what is clear, the value proposition becomes really important, regardless of what segments, you know, budget, mid-market, luxury, question the value they get from that product. So if people luxury, they need to luxury really well. and because every spare penny will be looked at and challenged. So I think the value proposition of all operators needs to come into play and see what they're offering, see how they can bring in, certain things which position that they give to their customers.
Excellent points, Jen. I think the audience is obviously even expressed in live chat their agreement with many of the points that you've discussed there. And you're right, I think that the luxury model now is going to be in future, where there's going to be a lot more investment. And the mid-market model, we'll see how long this crisis affects particular regions, and the businesses within those regions will affect those models much more in time as well. Hopefully, we'll have to watch this space for a little bit, but most of your predictions and your current thoughts on this, I think, are. I'm just going to move swiftly on because Barbara's currently having some issues with connectivity to our third point today, which is incorporating into your facility design. When and exactly where is it necessary now? If I can come firstly to Andrew for this, and then I'll come to Sean, and then to Jamie last. Andrew, you go ahead.
Yeah, great. So I think the basics are still there. I mean, retention is going to be key. How do you use member management software to retain your members? How do you use it to manage your facility? I think that hasn't changed. That is just absolutely critical for businesses to be successful, and it's accelerating. Now, what's been really, really interesting that we've seen through this COVID-19 crisis is the rapid adaptation and creation of digital products to try to keep members engaged at home. I mean, even if you think about Life Fitness, we sped up production on Digital Coach, which was a digital workout at home product, and we launched it in record speed. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. What's going to be really, really interesting to me, though, is if you look at the Pareto chart of all of the different digital products that have come out in the last 90 days, not a lot of them have a really solid connection back to the club itself. So they're extensions of the club, but it doesn't seem like they're fully integrated as part of the club. And so I think from a digital experience perspective, this is definitely going to teach us that you need to have some kind of digital experience from a workout perspective to augment your gym experience. The question is, what is the next step, and how does that look when it's actually paired more closely to the club itself that is launching that software?
Excellent point. Very good, my friend. And I do appreciate that actually you were extremely fast as a brand to get on the digital footprint, and launching that through. It was impressive. I agree. So congratulations to you and the team on that. So moving swiftly over to Sean for your input.
Well, I think there are several aspects of technology. I think there will be some basics of technology. I think that we'll see all gym studios employ things like your check-ins and cashless payments, contact tracing. All of that I think will be expected. That will be the new norm. But as for equipment that we have, I mean, we use a variety of equipment and like Life Fitness, Matrix. A lot of the brands already have a connected solution. But the question will be, if we look at COVID and we see that digital online fitness that one can sort of do at home as well, is sort of going to be the mainstay. It might not replace what we have in the physical clubs, but it's an add-on, it's complementary. And if we as a gym want to continue that engagement with the members, I think we have no choice but to have something online as well. Now, how do you sort of ensure that stickiness with your members? Because I've said this before, once you go into the online world, we're no longer competing on location. And a piece of equipment, something we've learned from the likes of Peloton and Mirror, may be what brings us that stickiness. So the challenge would be, how do clubs, how do gyms find pieces of equipment that somebody can also have at home? You can create your online workouts around that piece of equipment. You can retain your members, continue to engage them should they want to work out at home, but you can still draw them back to your clubs when you need to, when they're comfortable to come. It's a complementary solution. That's how I see it coming. It will be a challenge to find what that piece of equipment is or what the solution is, but there are a lot in the market and we need to keep on looking.
Excellent. You're absolutely right. We need to keep researching. Everyone's learning during this crisis. Everyone's trying to adapt and change at the same time. Essentially, that's why we are here with all of our audience who are listening to all of you for your insights, and hopefully they can deliver some of theirs via the chat. The more we work and unite together, the more solutions we have. More voices, more solutions. Moving swiftly over to you, Jamie. What's your input on this particular point?
So, I think it's a similar point to me for the market segmentation, in a sense that, quite often it's getting more challenging to segment the consumer, because quite often people use different things at different times. So who can be a member of a very luxury club and also a member of a budget club. And the life, generally speaking, is more integrated than ever. So I start with that because I think when it comes to technology, it has to be integrated, right? If you really want to make it work, and the big winners of COVID have been obviously the online platforms that were set up previously, who are doing a great job. There's been a rush, obviously, during this last few months for every operator to get a presence online and a pumping out. But it has to be more than a bolt-on, right? It has to be much more thought through and much more integrated into a holistic experience. So when, as Sean said and Andrew referred to, the experience has to be total. So in other words, that you use a club one day, next day you may work out at home. And I think what we'll see now is people are almost got used to working out at home with the different platforms and different exercises. It needs to be thought through in regards to how that integrates back into the club. And they're not, they support each other. I think it needs to be thought in that way of how it integrates best. And then obviously for the operators that have the physical hardware, it also gives it a robustness and flexibility if this happens again, if the online digital presence is strong, but actually a truly integrated experience which flows through the total holistic experience of people's lives.
Very nice point, my friend. I think we can all learn that probably the more integration we have within our industry and within our services and provisions, then ultimately the better we are, the more holistic we become, which for both our consumers and ultimately for our employees makes the best sense. So now I'm going to move swiftly on to our last point for today, and then after that I'll hopefully be able to take some of the audience's questions. I really do apologise that Barbara has been unable to join us. It is 3 a.m. for her currently, so quite late, but hopefully we'll try and bring her back for the audience's questions. For now, the last point is going to be, will we see more investment going into innovative lighting, flooring, sound, audio, visual, and different aspects of design as companies try to become more differentiated from their competitors? Obviously, there are restrictions with spending in this period, but as mentioned, gents, we do think it's going to end. We do think the recovery stages is beginning and will go back to normal. So what do you see the future being in that respect? And I'll go again quickly to Andrew, Sean, and then Jamie. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak specifically to lighting, AV, and sound just because of the nature of our business. But what I can speak to is experiences and the experiential state of going into a gym. I think, Sean, what he has with TFX in Singapore, what I saw, I mean, it's truly an experience to go into that club. It's very different. And, as a manufacturer, we're looking at how can we take hardware and create it to where it can be experiential. And, 2 examples, ICG, one of the brands that you listed, Coach by Color, that is a experience. It's something that we promote and we drive quite actively. I think another one that we just launched recently is Life Fitness on Demand, and it's coaching on console. So you can get on a console, you connect your Bluetooth headphones, and you have a coach that is giving you instruction, telling you what to do. So I don't necessarily know if it's really AV or lighting or flooring, but I think bringing a unique experience to customers is really what's going to be important as we go forward.
Absolutely, my friend. I think any way you can differentiate as a brand. Perhaps in this question, it's much more design focused on the raw elements, but I think as a provider, you've got a really good input as to how this comes about, how you showcase your equipment, and how that equipment is actually positioned in certain ways to make it very different from every other standard provider. So I'll move swiftly over to Sean, whose gyms, TFX and ultimately True Fitness have been both by Andrew and also by James Blower and myself sampled, and they are state of the art. So Sean, if you can just give us your quick input on this, thank you.
Thanks, Blair. Whether or not we'll be spending more on the stuff like lighting and design, I think at the moment, for at least the next 6 to 12 months, what we'll do is, I think we've done enough. We've pushed that envelope and we've done enough, but more of our investment will be on the technology front to see how we can explore the boundaries of technology and in a way incorporate design and experience within technology to see how that brings our members to a different place, enhances the experience, because what we really want to do is enhancing experience online as well. I think if we manage to pull that off and we do that well, I think that would be a perfect complement to the physical clubs that we have. And it buys us time to see where the industry develops in the next 6 and 12 months with COVID, and to see whether on the physical side, we push the boundaries even more with design and everything else. But for now, I think we've done enough. Now it's sort of wait and see how everybody sort of responds to what we've got in the offering.
It is early, you're right. I think with existing developments, it's hard to things. I think a lot of what you said before, when you're talking about new facilities and how they're going to be designed and how they're going to be looking towards that luxury market and meeting those ultimately specifications that they seek, is going to be something we're going to find in time will reveal itself. I'll come last now to you, Jamie, before we answer some of the audience's questions.
So look, I think for me, I mean, it's obviously difficult to talk about specifics. I mean, it really goes back to concept and your kind of strategic thrust of your business, of how you design and what you do. I think it's wrong to try and look at opportunistically at changing design based on the current situation, because it's too short term, and actually it has to make sense for your model, right? It has to make sense for the returns you're looking for, and more importantly, what's your concept and what's your unique selling point. So if that's part of, if lighting and UV is part of your concept, great, go for it, make it as attractive as possible. Of course, one thing is businesses, and that is, in the end, quality wins, right? So whatever your concept executes at best is not, and therefore I think this is an opportunity for people to review and reflect, because one thing is for sure, the investment guys are looking at every penny that will be spent moving forward in regards to how we're designing clubs, and the nimbleness, if I can say that, or the flexibility around the design in regards to investment as well, has to work. Therefore, I think it has to be aligned to the overall strategy and focus of that business. Of course, if you design great facilities, and that's a big part of your concept, yes, but again, you need to really examine the spend. You need to examine the return you can get or need based on your model and your strategy, I'd say.
Very aptly put, gents. Love that. So unfortunately, Barbara's not able to come back to us at this point in time. We have officially answered the questions that we posed initially. So now I'm going to try and bring in the audience. There has been 1 or 2 questions from the audience which almost mirror some of the questions we had in our last session. And that is to do with the hygiene and the air distribution within health clubs and gyms. I think for me personally, one of the things that came through from the last session was that a lot of luxury brands and premium providers, both in health clubs, gyms and fitness, are currently doing exceptional protocols, and it's simply making this more visible to others. We can also use things like UV technology, limit, for example, contact appropriate things for keys and lockers, and we can also do things like air ionizations through air con filters, which work very well at cleaning air. I'm going to try and now ask each of you if you've got any knowledge of current technologies, future things that you may employ in your businesses, provide your clients to aid the ability to make your facilities more pristine for hygiene and large group interactions. Let's start first of all with Sean, if you don't mind. Then I'll come to Andrew and then Jamie last.
Sure. Before we were locked down at the end of March, we were open for 2 weeks with a lot of restrictions. So we have some experience in this. But I think I would start by saying this: no matter what we do in gyms and the studios, to be honest, we'll never be able to create 100% disinfectant sterile environment. We won't. We won't. A lot of it is optics. A lot of it is restoring, confidence in the members to come back. So I think the very basics will have to be there. Temperature taking, cleaning, sanitization. Your members have to see you do it more regularly. And whether or not a certain solution. I mean, we've spoken with so many providers of cleaning and disinfectant solutions. And if you ask them a simple question, which one of your solutions has been proven scientifically to kill the COVID virus? The answer will always come back. Actually, we have not really tested it because we weren't able to. The laboratories are busy trying to find the odd antibody, but we can tell you all the other viruses and all the other bacteria that this is effective on. So they can't tell you for sure. Even UV. The parent company. We've got another company which has. They've employed UV tech next to the HVAC controls, the heating and ventilation, air conditioning, and this is more than 10 odd years. It's an expensive solution, but if you ask me, does that kill the COVID-19 virus? I'm not sure, and they can't tell you either. But will it give confidence to members coming in? Absolutely, yes. And the more of these things you want to employ and you want to put into your clubs, I guess, the more the confidence level. But as an operator, you're always having to do that and balancing that with costs, and that's the reality. So I think there will be a minimum. I think the industry will find our balance and we'll look around and see what our competitors are doing, and whatever they are doing, we'll do. We might put a little bit more, but more than that, I don't think we'll go to the extremities,
That's good. There has to be a balance of being able to clean and restoring the premises that it looks inviting, and at the same time not doing so much so that it looks as if you're going into some sort of CDC control area and scaring people off. So I'm going to come to you, Andrew, and then Jamie on this question as well. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we've seen our fair share of products that have come out in the last 60 days, from different barriers and air purifiers and machines that you walk in and it sprays you and it's supposed to disinfect you. And I couldn't agree more with what Sean is saying. It really comes down to the perception by customers and consumer confidence. And I think it's fundamentally it's blocking and tackling. You've got to be hygienic. You've got to wipe down equipment. You are going to have to step up. There's going to be some additional costs that you're going to have to invest in. So that is going to happen. But again, I think it just comes down to the perception of the customer. The only other things I would add is having the opportunity to see this throughout all of Asia Pacific, having ties to the US. Government regulations are all over the map. So I think, for operators, if I was to give any piece of advice, what we did in our office in Hong Kong with our local employees is we followed government recommendations. That's kind of all you can do because of the wide spectrum. The second thing I would say is humans have a very short memory. And just like at the start of this call, when Jamie said, this is not going to last forever, this is not going to last forever. And what's going to be interesting to see is when these new hygienic methods are employed, what happens when the virus does eventually go away and a new operator wants to open up and they've got a full suite of equipment and they can charge a lower price or equal price with a better experience because they haven't had to invest. So it's definitely going to be a balancing act for operators over the next 3, 6, 9 months.
So look, from my perspective, and again, I think it's important to note, yes, we have to be compliant with guidelines, of course, of our ability to follow all these regulations. Without trying to be controversial, I do agree totally with Sean and Andrew. It's optics, a lot of it is actually to give confidence in regards to your consumer, because the reality is, we're exposed to multiple viruses every day, And true immunology and strength is how do you really help yourself to be healthy? Then this is the business we're in. And the best thing people can do for themselves is to eat well, to move, exercise, and have some form of mindfulness in their lives to reduce stress and so forth. These things will actually support massively people's health, much more than being over-sterilized, because over-sterilization is really not how you build great society. This is the reality of health. So I think there's a lot of it is optics, and I think a lot of people are, we need to demonstrate that we obviously level to make sure people are confident, but to be over-sterilized doesn't really help us in the long term so much. Obviously, in the more luxury type of product, that we can afford to have, air filters, and we can afford to have to control the environment, because that's part of the concept anyway. And I think that's obviously a luxury most operators in a volume-driven business don't have. But I think so. In summary, I think we have to look to the best way to be compliant, but in regards to safe, healthy, and sensible guidelines. But going too far, it's not a kind of point of difference. It's a qualifier. And we can't use it as at a competitive advantage because we are seen to have better realization. I think the customer needs to understand that we all have, as a base level, there's enough there to people feel comfortable and safe. But that's a basic expectation I think we'll all have to demonstrate. So, absolutely.
When we were talking about technology earlier, if we came up with a really good video conferencing platform, we'd be really good.
Make fortune.
What we can do, gents, is we've got a minute left. Maybe if we can think about what you're most positively looking forward to in the next 6 to 12 months. Sean, what are you most looking forward to in the next 12 to 6 months?
Reopening in full and having the gyms packed again. The members are raring to go, but we just want to be able to reopen safely and get back to business as close to normal as possible.
Jamie?
Look, I think I'm actually very optimistic. I think this is a really pivotal point in our human evolution in regards to this happening, because it's made us all reflect and look at what's important. And I think, so that's from a more esoteric perspective, let's say. But from a commercial, I'm also very optimistic, because one thing is true in that, health is wealth. This is the business we're in. And people, this whole experience has let people see that we need to invest in our health. And so I think it'll be a buoyant time. I think we're going to 6 to 12 months will be tough for a lot of people to survive. But I think the brands and the organizations that can survive will thrive beyond that.
Andrew, what are you looking forward to?
Predictability. I mean, I think Mike Lamb said that in the keynote. You take a best guess at your club openings, your member rate, and that's what it is. It's your best guess. It's I'm sure Sean can appreciate this. Jamie can appreciate this. As a business leader, a general manager, whatever position you're in, if you're trying to navigate these tough times, predictability is going to be very welcome in the next few months.
Excellent. Well, gents, that will close us off at 4:15. That's the end of the session. So I want to thank you very much for your time, gents. And we will record this session, as you know, and it will be sent to everybody on Friday morning. Small edits at the beginning and the end. But Jamie, Sean, Andrew, and Blair, thank you very much for joining us today, gents. Godspeed, and we'll see you again very soon.
And thanks to all the audience for attending. Thank you, gents. Thank you, audience.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.